Hello, my name is Dr. Cassandra LeClaire. I'm a communication studies professor and I teach about interpersonal relationships. A lot of my classes focus on things like feelings and empathy and creating connections with other people. So today I'm going to talk to you about communicating in the digital world. And it's interesting to have this conversation from the perspective of building connections and having empathy and compassion and creating relationships. So, as we're thinking today about communicating in the digital age, I want you to think about how your life looks different now compared to how it looked a year ago or 2 years ago. And I want you to think about the impact of digital communication on your relationships. I want you to think about the ways that technology has improved, inhibited, enhanced, or maybe made worse, made better, whatever phrase you want to use. I want you to think about the ways that technology has changed your relationships. So, today we're going to cover the impact of technology on communication. We're going to talk about some things that prevent us from establishing deep connections online. And then we're going to focus on ways that we can improve to become better communicators in a digital online space. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy. We're now relying on technology more than ever to create connections and to continue relationships. One thing that happens when we're learning new technology is we continually try to figure out how to adapt from a face to face situation to a new platform, to a new app, or to a new way of talking to somebody. So you may have learned to adapt via email or via text message, but maybe within the last year or 2 years, you found yourself learning to adapt in terms of video conferencing or in terms of other technologies. So, part of the way that technology impacts our relationships and impacts our communication is in addition to talking to somebody and to getting to know them, or in addition to doing our business or having that interaction with somebody, we're also working to understand what channel to use. We're also working to understand what unique ways we should communicate depending on the platform we're asked to use. So we may have to think about, how do we formulate an email? How should I send this text? Should I use a video call? Should I pick up the phone? Should I send this person a personal message on a social network? Should I post on a social network? So, the reason I'm bringing up all of those questions is, again, continually taking this material and thinking about your personal life and thinking about the ways that technology and digital communication has enhanced or changed or altered your relationships. And if you're in a situation where you have space that you're unclear about what the digital communication expectations are, thinking about what is unclear to you and how we can get to a space where you feel confident and comfortable to communicate across different platforms. So, this is incredibly important to sit with and to think about, because more and more people are using technology to communicate for a majority of their day. So many of you, not only are you probably using technology for work, you're probably using it at home. Maybe you're helping children with school, you're using it in organizations. So, in addition to using technology across different contexts and using those different platforms, you're probably also managing many devices. So, in terms of technology, it is very multifaceted. We have to look at it in terms of what it does to our life and our energy, what it does to our brain in terms of trying to learn different platforms and to learn which type of technology to use, and then what it does in terms of our connections, as far as how are we going to continue to adapt and learn and integrate technology so that we can keep up with the changing digital workplace and continue to enhance connections and improve our communication. So, as we go forward, thinking about the ways that your technology use inhibits or enhances your communication, really getting honest with yourself about your own communicative behaviors and recognizing spaces that you maybe need to improve. So, again, thinking about those personal examples, thinking about work, thinking about home life, thinking about things that you just happen to see on the internet. What sticks out to you? What are things that you think are good? What are things that you think are bad? Who does it well? Really working to figure out what positive digital communication looks like for you and your organization so you can set the expectation. When we're thinking about technology, we don't always see how it can bleed into other areas. Sometimes expectations about what communication should look like can get blurry because we are using so many platforms and different devices. Oftentimes, we might use shorthand in a text, and then that could carry over to an email. So, also acknowledging where your communicative practices are best and most appropriate. So, is it best to text? Is it most appropriate to text? Is it best to email? Is it most appropriate to email? And some of these questions are going to be difficult to answer unless you do have a relationship with the people that you're communicating with. So, it's important to understand the company culture, understand the organizational culture, and know which platform to choose. In addition to choosing the correct platform and choosing the ways to communicate, it's important to think about how your digital communication is going to be received by people that you are communicating with. What are their expectations? Is this a professional email? If so, are you using full sentences? Do you have a greeting? Do you have a closing? Is it appropriate to reach out to somebody on social media? This is something that has changed drastically for different organizations. More and more businesses are handling things through personal messaging. So if you are communicating with somebody from your business to another business, then hopefully you would remember to still use professional language and professional etiquette, even though you're on a social network platform. If you're communicating as an individual on a social media platform, also recognizing what expectations might exist for you as an employee. Does what you put on your social media platform reflect your company in a way that your company respects, upholds, understands, and approves of? And really thinking about how you are presenting yourself in a digital format, just like you would if you were in a face to face interaction with somebody. And the thing that we have to continue to understand about these digital interactions as we're thinking about the scope of things and how we can continue to set these expectations is we also have to work to remember that people can go back to our communication. There are screenshots, there are emails, there are many different ways that people can hang on to the words that you say online. So it is even more important that you take time and care and consideration to be thoughtful about the types of communication you are putting out into the digital space. What types of words are you using? What types of intentions are you using? And are you upholding your own personal value system? Are you being a good representative of the company? And are you communicating in a way that is still professional, respectful, and kind? So, digital communication does employ the same types of elements of face to face interaction in terms of you should still work to remember that there are people on the other side of the screen. And if you were talking to somebody on the other side of the screen, what feelings would you want to convey? What meanings would you want to convey? And what messages would you want to convey? And work to be clear and articulate in your digital communication so that they are not taking things personally or reading things in a way that was not what you intended. When we're thinking about all of the ways that we use technology, we also have to think about how our privacy does differ. As I mentioned, once we put out digital communication, it often lives there forever. So, what kind of image are you presenting? How can you keep your information private that you don't want others to see? What ways can you still protect your identity? How can you keep your personal life separate from your private life? These are questions that really came into the forefront over the last year, even more. Many people were working from home, and that separation of home and work or that work life balance became almost impossible to manage. So it's very important that you continually take an assessment of where your time and energy is going and recognize where your focus is then also going. What we know from multitasking is that it often leads to burnout. And unfortunately, when you're managing multiple devices or even having multiple tabs open on your computer screen, you are managing multiple things and your brain is working hard to keep up with all of the different tasks. So, continually recognizing the ways that your attention is divided, not only on your current device, but then every time you pick up your phone or every time you answer an email when you were working on something else. And so, really trying to take that focus and enhancing your digital communication, enhancing your online communication by being more present and focusing on one thing at a time and taking the space to take time to answer emails and respond to emails at a certain space in your day. If it's not urgent, can it wait till the next time you answer your emails? Or creating spaces for yourself to really break away from being in a position where you have to continually check multiple devices or multiple things, even on one device. This is important because technology and increased technology use leads to feelings of overwhelm and burnout. And why that matters is because those feelings of overwhelm and burnout lead to physical and emotional stress. So, what we've seen as people continue to have more and more video conferencing calls or work from home, or they don't have a separation, or they're continually feeling like they're managing multiple things, what we have seen is an increase in anxiety. We have seen an increase in stress levels. And it is more and more difficult for people to find that separation. So, when I talk about finding privacy boundaries for yourself, I'm not only talking about keeping your private information off the internet that you don't want out there. I'm not only talking about curating a digital image that is representative of who you want to be. I am also talking about creating privacy boundaries so that you keep a separation from yourself, from your work, and keep space for yourself as an individual because your emotional and physical health do need you to have a separation from the digital space. So this is also where bringing up social networking that can get a little tricky for people because if you're using technology all day at work and then you go home and you start scrolling your phone, you're still using technology. So, really being cognizant if technology is causing you to burn out, if staring at a screen is causing you feelings of frustration or stress, then taking spaces where you can. And that may mean taking spaces away from social media at different times. That may mean setting more boundaries and only answering emails at certain times of day. It may mean setting a timer for yourself and really only focusing on one task at a time, but taking a moment to step back and acknowledge your technology use and see the ways that you are not creating clear boundaries and recognizing how you can improve to regain some energy, because that will improve not only your communication if you have better energy and you're in a better mood, but it will increase your physical and mental well being and health. We can always work to improve our communication across any setting, whether it's face to face or in online interactions. So, some of the steps that we take in these digital spaces are the same steps we can take in face to face interactions. So, think about the ways that you want to be treated, think about the ways that you want to be spoken to, and then work to speak to people and treat people in that same way in an online format. So, that begins, as we've discussed, with checking your own behaviors, recognizing the ways that you're communicating, understanding other people's expectations, recognizing what's appropriate, how to communicate, when to communicate with them, and what types of language choices that you're making, what types of language is appropriate. Where can you use emojis? Where can you not? When can you text somebody? When should you send an email? Again, really taking stock of the culture, your behaviors, and the expectations. Along with those things, it's important to think about being transparent and direct. When we're communicating digitally, we lose that face to face interaction of being able to read somebody's energy or really making eye contact with them or seeing their nonverbals or understanding the tone in their voice. So it's important to err on the side of caution and be clear. Read things back and make sure that you understand what you're saying. And does somebody who's not in your field, would they understand what you're saying? If you're sending a message to another technical person or professional, perhaps that's not as important. But considering the audience of the message, who are you talking to? How are they going to read what you're writing? How are they going to interpret your words? So, with this, then, it's very important to consider your tone. When we read things, we read tone into them. For right or for wrong, we read things how we perceive they were written. So somebody will take your words and read them with their own perspective attached. They will take your words and read them with their own personal history or whatever's happened to them in that day or whatever mood they're in, and they will read your words from that lens. So it's incredibly important to work to continue to be respectful, polite, professional, and to be clear and direct. Make sure that other people know your intention and know where you're coming from and know what you're saying. If there is any confusion, clear it up and follow up. If you make a mistake, acknowledge that. Continually working to improve your interactions so that other people see your clear intentions. If people understand that you're communicating with clear intentions and that you aren't trying to trick them or you aren't trying to be disingenuous, then they will start to read your messages from a different tone. One of the things that happens is we do tend to personalize words that we read. We see things and we read them from our frame and we take them personally. So, always working again to be respectful and kind and considerate and recognize that somebody else could take your words and interpret them in a way that you didn't intend. So, as you're seeking to communicate with other people in this way, and you're hoping that your words are taken at the meaning that you meant, you must also then, when you're reading other people's words, remember not to take things personally. Remember to check your own behaviors. When you read something, what perspective are you bringing? Are you upset with what they've said because you're having a bad day, or did they really say something upsetting? And again, this can be more and more enhanced in technology because we don't have the opportunity to check our behaviors with somebody. We don't have that option to say, hey, are you upset with me? Instead, we fire back an email or we send off a text or we say something we shouldn't on social media. So always remembering what you're doing online should be similar to what you're doing on face to face. And that should be working to foster and establish connections with other people that are healthy and positive. So, if you have any questions as you're working through this or as you're thinking about things, I welcome you to reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a good day.